So for example, if you and I went on a road trip to your next seminar or whatever you were doing, and we spent 2 days, getting to the location and doing some workouts together, you'd probably share some stories and some messages, and I would remember them for a very long time. Maybe 40 years later, I'd remember 30 or 40% of those stories. So that's kind of the gift that I was given at birth, and it's helped me in a lot of ways. But sometimes can busy the mind too much and disallow me to focus on some things I need to focus on, because I'm thinking about a story that Robert shared with me years ago. Anything like that resonate with you?
All the time, Sifu. Like I daydream a lot. I'm pretty sure I have some level of ADHD. Always since school till this day, it's caused me problems in my personal and professional life. But I like it. I don't dislike it. Sometimes you'll say something like you said, and I'll go on these tangents, and I'll be gone for 15 minutes, and I come back, and I think it's my way of coping with the world. It bothers other people more than it bothers me.
So I heard some talks about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu history. You probably talked in an interview about your background in MMA, BJJ, and training and these types of things. So what I wanted to ask the professor about today is lifestyle. And you see this in your students, your family members, your friends, your neighbors, and you yourself. And I wanted to ask you about how we live in the modern era, how we assess our health and mind, body, and spirit. And one of the things I want to ask you about, I have a list. We have no settling of differences in a safe physical way for the most part, right? Back in the 60s, when I grew up, 70s, we had a kid come in who had been in Brazil, and we were all wrestling on the ground. And this kid wasn't as good as we were in the various athletic endeavors we were into, even running and hide and seek and that kind of thing. But he said, anybody want to wrestle? And I don't know how many years he had spent in Brazil, but he learned enough. He put us in our guard and he tapped all of us out. It was so cool. And I didn't know what it dawned on me when years later, before Hoist won, somebody invited me to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I said, this is what that guy was doing when I was 7 years old. That was amazing. So settling of differences in a safe physical way, we could do it in the 60s and 70s. Bruce Lee complained that all those years of martial arts back in the late 60s and 70s, he said, now with the modern handgun that most people have, you can't get by with settling your differences with your martial arts. So over to you about settling differences and the benefits or detractions of life that can lead us to.
One thing, much prior to Bruce Lee, Jigoro Kano had that issue already. Right, he bumps into his issues like, how do I find a purpose for this? I want a purpose for it. How do we do this? Right, so he created a curriculum. He performed what I call a miracle. He convinced the Ministry of Education in a country that was undergoing rapid modernization, trying to abandon their feudal past and any relationship to it. He convinced this Ministry of Education that teaching children how to fight was a good idea. And I think that he is not given credit, really. It's funny about martial arts, gurus and heroes in general, like they get credit for things they didn't do, and the things that they did do, they don't get credit for. I think that's astounding that Jigoro Kano pulled that off, but I think he found a purpose for martial arts beyond the martial aspect of it. We still call it martial art, but there's not a whole bunch of warfare going on in martial arts anymore. It has become a lifestyle, it's become a sport, it's become a philosophy of life. If you want to argue for that, I think you can. I think it's something that gives people purpose. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and competition have given my life purpose. Now learning its history gives it purpose, and talking to you does that. And I think that there's a lot. I mean, back to the Greek ideal of mind and body. I think that Jigoro Kano rescues that. And I think Jigoro Kano doesn't. We don't really realize how much Jigoro Kano borrowed from Western ideas of physical education and philosophy in general. There's a lot of it's not Japanese, it's Western. But I think that he was concerned with that, and I think he found something in martial arts that was of value to children and adults alike regarding an educational system, something that teaches you lifelong lessons. And it happens to be great for self-defense too, but I strongly believe that fitness and self-defense, despite them being the drivers of students to your gym through your door, I don't think those are the biggest benefits. I think self-defense, I had to use it once, realistic. So 26 years of training, arthritis all over my body now. All those years of eating me now to use it once. I mean, get a handgun, you know, like, but like when it comes to what I learned on the mats through competition, through losing, through getting my ass kicked, like I mean, I'm sure you can learn those lessons in other domains of life, but I learned mine through jiu-jitsu and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So the idea of self-defense, one of the questions is before I jumped online with you today, I walked outside where I am today and for about a month in Savannah, Georgia, and there was some noise outside and it sounded semi-violent. So it could have been somebody who was losing their mind, or it could have been a violent interaction. So I said, I want to ask Robert if he would rather have a baseball bat next to his door, or he would rather have an advanced degree in martial arts when he had something out by his car that he wanted to go out and break up or defend his car.
As long as I can drop the baseball bat, I wouldn't mind starting to fight with a swing. I think, but as soon as things get real, I would probably abandon the baseball bat. I don't know how to fight with one. I know how to fight with my hands. I trust my hands against multiple opponents. I trust my skills. Of course, depends on the quality of the opponent. I think that's something a lot of people overlook. Their athletic ability, their level of aggression, and their skills. These things count, you know, like you get some guys out there that aren't skilled, but man, they hit hard, you know, like they have a natural punch to them and they'll knock your head off, they hit you. And they don't have skills, but they're swinging and they're very aggressive. You know, sometimes aggressiveness is technique, you know, taking the initiative and not hesitating. So all these things are taken into account. I think I started martial arts or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I wanted to learn how to defend myself. I want to learn how to fight, but that's not why I stayed. I stayed for different reasons. I stayed for lifestyle, community, purpose. I became obsessed with competition. Now I'm obsessed with teaching, you know, and I think I found my calling, if such thing exists. I think, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA were my calling from the beginning, especially coaching. I'm known more as a fighter, but I think I'm better a coach than I am fighter.